right, welcome back, everybody. For today, we're going to continue to get ready for the test. Remember, next time I see you in class, you will be taking the Unit 7 test, which is a combination of Unit 7 and, of course, Unit 6. We are preparing and getting ready for a midterm coming up. Now, you should be on page 41 in your packet. You should have already tried some of these problems, and so if you were not able to do some of these, we'll get ready to start writing things down. If you did do some of them, we'll then check your answer. So we're going to do as many of these as possible. So we're going to start off with the first one. Which two of the following are equations of the line that has a slope of 3 and it goes through this point? See, so right off the bat, we notice they said, give me an equation of a line. So equation of a line, well, we have a go-to for that one. We'll write it shortly. They said slope is 3, so that's my m is 3. When they give me a point, well, it's always x and y. So I need an equation that has room for 3 letters. So let's zoom in nice and big here now. So we need an equation that has room for 3. Well, according to our word one, we're talking about going way back to unit number 4. This is a skill you need to leave this class knowing how to do. So it's going to be on every test from now on. So the sooner you figure it out, the easier this will be. But we have to use the equation known as the point slope formula. Why? They gave me a point. They gave me a slope. That means I have 3 pieces of information. Well, here it is. This is how we use the point slope formula for our problems. So let's write it down. Y minus y1, slope, x minus x1. Again, this is the point slope equation. And with that point slope equation, we have a spot for 1, 2, 3 numbers that we can use. Well, now all I have to do is make sure that my y, the minus sign, are there. The x and the minus sign are there. But here come the 3 spots that we said we were going to fill out. Remember, we already broke it down up here. So it says, what goes with my y? Well, a y value. Well, my only y value here is -7. So I'm going to throw a -7 in there. Yes, you need that extra negative. The m is my slope. Well, that's a 3. The x is just a -10, so -10. Now, we have double negatives, so we will fix that first. So we're going to say y plus 7 is equal to 3 times x plus 10. Now, they did say choose 2 equations that match, so I like to pause here for a moment. This is what point slope looks like, and if you look carefully, it's letter C. So we already matched up one of our answers. But that doesn't mean we're done, because we can keep going with this, and when we keep going, we have a parentheses, then all that means is we're going to distribute, aka multiply in. So we end up with y plus 7 is equal to 3 times x is 3x. 3 times 10 is 30. And notice, my last job is get the y by itself. Well, we already know how to get rid of things. The opposite of adding is subtracting. So we subtract the 7 to both sides. And just like that, we have y is equal to 3x. And then 30 take away 7 is just 23. And so there is the second way that we can write this equation. This one is written in what we call point slope. And then, of course, this one is written in slope intercept form, which matches this answer down here. So these are the 2 choices I should be picking for this problem. Now, if you look at number 2 is basically asking the same thing. So I am going to practice number 2 with you as well, even though it's the same type of question. But this time, look at all your answer choices. Y equals, Y equals, Y equals, Y equals. They don't want to make it look like this. So I'm going to have to take it all the way to the end. Get the Y by itself, and then I'll be able to do that or pick my answer. Well, notice what they gave me. They gave me a point. So to me, that means they gave me an X and a Y. They gave me a slope of -4. Well, then that means my slope, M, is -4. Again, I have 3 pieces of information. Well, just like I did up here, which means I'm bringing in point slope again. So it's the same equation, same type of problem, where I'm going to use y minus y1 is equal to slope times x minus x1. And yes, we write the y minus, we write the x minus because these things have to be there. But now I have 3 spots available for my 3 pieces of information that we have here. Again, don't put them anywhere you want. You got to be careful where you write them in. It says I need a y value. Well, there it is. My y is 1. It says I need a slope. Well, it's -4. I need an x. Well, here's my x. It's a 2. So let's throw a 2 in there. You have to put things where they belong. Again, none of these answers match this. So it says y minus 1 is equal to, and then here comes the distribution that we always take care of next, because that's what parentheses tell us. So I end up with a -4x. Negative times a negative is a positive. 4 times 2 is 8. All right, well, there's only one last step, and that's to get the y by itself. And as always, to get the y by itself, we do the opposite operation. So we add a 1 to both sides. And just like that, y is equal to -4x. So you see this one's out. 8 plus 1 is 9, but it's a positive 9. Don't fall for their tricks there. There's the answer, right? There's the only one that matches. So again, it's one of the skills that you need to leave this class knowing how to write the equation of a line. So yes, it's going to show up on this test, and be ready for it. It's going to show up on the next one and the next one after that. We need to know how to do this. Once you learn how to do this, you know you'll get this question right every time on every test. Now, next question. Number 3. Now, if you look at number 3 and number 4, which you can see both of them on the screen right now, they are the exact same type of problem. So instead of doing the same problem twice, I'm only going to do one of them. All right, so here we go. Let's see. Let's go with number 3 just because it was the next one. So let's talk about number 3. Now, we see negative numbers. Sorry, let me be exact. We see negative powers. This has a negative power. That's a negative power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix it. At higher levels of math, we do not like negative powers. So the 24 does not have a negative power. The 6 does not have a negative power. I like handling one letter at a time, one number at a time. So those are my numbers. None of them had negative powers. I leave them alone. So now I look at the letter P. This P has a power that's negative. Well, if it's at the top, I'm going to send it to the bottom. But don't forget, when you move it, the negative disappears. But then look at this P. There is no negative power. Well, then leave it. If it doesn't have a negative power, you leave it where it is. And then we keep looking again. Now I'm going to look at Q. This says Q to the positive, a positive power of 8. Well, then I'm going to leave it up there because it has a positive power. But that Q has a negative. Well, then I'm going to send it to the top. Remember, a negative power, you change its location within a fraction. It's not about flipping necessarily. So now I'm going to do this problem very carefully. I'm going to handle my numbers first. Remember, a fraction stands for division. So I am going to write my fraction line. And 24 divided by 6, or use your ABC button. 24 divided by 6 is just 4. And I write it on top because that's where my bigger number is. Now I'm going to handle the letter Q. Well, all the Q's are on top, but I'm only going to write one of them. What we need to remember is, well, what do I do with my powers here? Because there's 2 Q's, we're going to add our powers. So 8 plus 4 is just a 12. Now let's look at the letter P. The letter P, they're also both at the bottom, so let me write it down there. And again, I'm going to add my powers. Should have probably written that in there. So 5 plus 7 is also 12. But then that's it. I can't do anything with these two. They're completely different letters, which means there's my answer. Now, for practice, you should try number 4 down at the bottom because it's basically the exact same question or type of question, but that's what's going to happen on the test. You're going to get the same type of concept with different numbers. So we won't do number 4, but you should try it out on your own. And if you already did, you can check your answer later on. All right, we're going to jump to the only new question. So here's number 5. Now, number 5 just says you're going to be solving. Okay, that's easy enough. We've been solving since the start of the semester. So This has a K in it. That has a K in it. But when you look, here's my equal sign. So do I need to add the 8K? No, not at all. This is combining like terms. 4K minus 8K is negative 4K plus the 8 is equal to negative 16. Again, you need to combine your like terms. You only move it over the line if you're trying to get it to the other side, but we didn't do that. See, now I'm going to move things. So first things first, I'm going to subtract the 8. Adding and subtracting is what we always work with first. So I have a negative 4K is equal to a negative, well, you got to combine them. So 24, they're both negative. So we add them up. And then to get rid of this 4, the big mistake people make is they go, oh, that's a minus. It's not a minus. They're right next to each other. Then the only thing you're allowed to do is divide by negative 4 on both. And so K is equal to 6. And it's a positive 6 because of the double negative. And there's our answer. Again, some of these questions are really old school ones like this one, where we're just reminding you and hoping that you don't forget how to do basic solving. All right, so that brings us to number 6. Number 6, they want me to rewrite. We're not solving. We don't need a calculator. We don't need any of that going on. So we'll rewrite this. Now it says a 6. Notice there's a 6 involved. That's the base. So I have to have a 6. So that means this is out and this is out. They make no sense at all. And because we have a radical, that's why we have it in our word wall, it means my power is a little fraction up here. So we have a power that's a fraction. What you need to remember, and according to the word wall, whatever our index is represents our denominator. So if my index is a 5, then I need to put a 5 right here. And then the only number left is the 3. Well, that goes on the top. And so you see, look at how they try to get you. Be careful, choose carefully, because there's my answer. This is the one that matches our answer perfectly. That's why I write it down, play it safe. Now, number 7 is also very similar, and you saw this the other day as well. Now they want me to rewrite and go the opposite way. Well, we just said, when you see a fraction as a power, it means it used to be a radical. So I get my radical going. And the 17 goes on the inside because that's my base. But again, remember the rule. Whatever the denominator is, that's my index. So that 7 we see here has to be inside of our root like this, or inside the little check mark part, right? If you think of it that way. So already this is out because that's a 4. That's fine, that's fine, that's fine. But remember, when this is a power. That's why it makes no sense to have a 4 in the front. But that power of 4 would just come on the outside. So there's our answer. See, this one didn't even have a 4 at all. That's how we knew that one was also gone. All right, some of these problems we did talk about on Monday. So again, it's just review. So here's number 8. Now, number 8 does say the magic words, choose all that apply, which usually means you got to work all of them out. And what we mentioned in class was when you have a list of numbers, it is your job to find a pattern. Any list of numbers I give you, you always look for a pattern. So here we see the numbers are getting bigger. Well, then when numbers get bigger, it only happens if you are adding or multiplying. Well, 3 times something is not going to be a 7, but 3 plus 4 is 7. Let's see if that's the pattern. 7 plus 4, yep, that's 11. 11 plus 4, that's 15. 15 plus 4, there's my 19. So it does have a pattern. It has to do with addition. All right, let me look at my next one. Remember, choose all that apply means you got to do all of them. Well, I see this list is also getting bigger too. So it's either multiplying or adding. Those are my 2 options. Now, if I'm adding, 4 plus 4 is 8, but 8 plus 4 is definitely not 16. So maybe it's multiplying. 4 times 2 is 8. Well, let's see if that's the pattern. 8 times 2, yep, 16. 16 times 2 is definitely 32. 32 times 2 is also 64. So it does have a pattern, and it has to do with multiplication. All right, let's keep it going. Letter C. Look at that one carefully. The numbers are getting smaller for the first time. So then the only thing it can be is subtracting or dividing. But I'm going to tell you right now, the fact that I see a fraction stands for division, and then that's what I'm going to check. So I'm going to check division because I see a fraction here. 27 divided by what is 9? Well, there's a 3. 9 divided by 3, definitely a 3. 3 divided by 3 is a 1. And then 1 divided by 3, well, we can't. That's why we leave it as a fraction. All right, so there's a pattern. And then I look at this one. My numbers are getting bigger. But when I go like this one, let's see, we know it can't be multiplication. That would be a decimal. That doesn't work too well for us. But I could add a 5 to get a 14. For this one, I can add a 6. That's the only thing that would work. So already, look, yes, it looks like it has a pattern, but not one that's consistent. See, this is a consistent pattern. Multiplying by 2, by 2, by 2, that's consistent. Consistent, yeah, not so much. Not the kind of pattern we're used to. But according to our word wall, whenever we want a geometric sequence, the pattern that we're looking for, according to the word wall, is a multiplying, or we have to divide. And now that I've done the work and geometric says multiply or divide, this one had multiplication, so that's my answer. This one had division, so that's my answer as well. Those are the two that I'm looking for. This one, this is not a pattern we're used to. And then this one is adding, so that would be arithmetic, not geometric. All right, well, okay, let's keep going. So flip the page as soon as you're ready. Flip the page. We're going to try to see how many of these you were able to do on your own. All right, let's flip the page. And don't forget, doing this will help you do every single question on your homework for tonight. All right, here we go. Now, again, if the problems repeat, I'm only going to show you one. Okay? All right, and we haven't seen this in a while. It says solve for x. But look at where your x is located. It's a power. And I look over here. My x is a power. This is unfortunately one that a few of you got wrong on the test. And all you had to do is this. Do they have the same base? Meaning, do they both say 10? Well, the answer is yes. If they both say 10, then the rule is you make the powers equal to each other. Yes, you ignore the fact that they're powers. Now they're just regular old numbers and letters. But you make the powers equal to each other. Now, I'm just going to solve the way I've always solved problems. One, I have x's, but I've got this one here and this one here. Well, they need to be on the same side, so I do need to move one over. Here, this is smaller, so I'm going to get rid of this one. The opposite of add a positive x or adding x is subtracting x. So I'm going to get my x's together. So here's a 3 equals 4x plus 7. All right, think about it now. How do I get rid of this positive 7? Well, let's subtract the 7. So that's gone. 10 is equal to 4x. And then, whoa, maybe not a 10. Let's try that a little carefully. Check your numbers on a calculator there. 3 minus 7 is negative 4. So negative 4. And now we divide by 4. Now remember, that is a negative 4 up there. So then x is equal to negative 1. And there's the answer. So again, the rule is if they have a matching base, then your powers must be equal. All right. Now, we saw one of these the other day as well. Look at number 10. When you look at number 10, the idea is, all right, you got to look right in the middle. This thing has a plus sign in it. So because it has a plus sign in it, well, then that means one thing. I need to just combine like terms because it's just a plus sign. So then I have 3x squared minus 6x plus 6 plus negative 8x squared minus 2x minus 5. That looks a little weird. That's okay. But when I combine, remember, I don't mess with powers. I literally just combine my numbers. So 3 minus 8 is negative 5. And yes, why did I join them? Because they both said x squared. Then I'll combine the negative 6x with the negative 2x. Why am I combining them? Because they both say x, but negative 6 combined with the negative 2, well, now I have more negatives, so it's negative 8. And of course, x, that's why we joined them. And finally, it says, well, you got a positive 6 with no x. You got a minus 5 with no x, so 6 minus 5, positive 1. And just like that, that's our answer. We can't combine anybody else. So then that's all we do. Okay? All right. When you look at the next one, please be very careful. See, if you notice right off the bat, there's a minus sign. See, that does change things. That's why you can't look at a problem and go, what do I do? It tells you right in the middle. They want me to subtract. But subtracting has no effect on what's in front of the minus. So I'm just going to copy that down. There's no effect on it. But I'm not subtracting just the 6, right? I'm subtracting the 6. I'm going to say minus 6x squared. But I'm also subtracting the negative 3. So if you think about it, negative times a negative is a positive 3x. All these changes need to happen. And then a negative times a positive, I'm subtracting an 8 then. We have to make these changes first. So it's going to be on the test again because people made mistakes the first time around. But now we're ready to start combining. So I'm going to go with 8x squared and negative 6x squared. Well, yeah, I'm combining them. 8 minus 6 is 2. And why did I join them? Because they say x squared. Then, of course, I'm going to combine the 8x with a positive 3x. So 8 plus 3 is just 11. So positive 11. And why did I combine them? Because they both have a single x. And finally, I'm going to combine the 9 with the negative 8. And 9 minus 8 is just a 1. And just like that, there's our answer. Because once again, we can't combine anybody else. That's how we leave it. I'll give you a moment to catch up with the writing there. All right, keep it going. Next one says you're going to be multiplying x minus 9 times x plus 9. Okay, well, here we go. Remember, this is where you are multiplying, so powers will change. But here's the first one. Remember, it's called FOIL. The first x times x. All right, well, x times x is x squared. Then, of course, we have x times 9. Well, x times 9 is just 9x. So there's the outer. So now we need to do the inner. Negative 9 times x is negative 9x. And finally, negative 9 times positive 9 is negative 81. So we did our combination. Sorry, we did our multiplication, but now it's our combination that's next. And the only numbers I can combine are these two right here. But if you look carefully, 9x minus 9x, well, then all of it is gone. And that leaves me with an x squared in the front and that minus 81 in the back, and there's our answer. That's why we call it a difference of squares. We've done it for factoring. Well, now we've also seen it for multiplication. Okay. All right, number 13. Again, this review is a lot longer than the real thing because we want to get the practice in. But the first thing we notice is the word factor. So as soon as they say factor, and yes, we have parts in the word wall for this as well, you got to go over the GCF first. That's a given. So here comes my word wall. I'm going to look at my list. Now I have a number 24 and a number 8. So I'm going to look at the number 8. That's the first thing I'm going to look at. Yeah, I know there's a 24 in front, but 8 is smaller. So I'm going to go there. All right, so looking at my list, I look at the number 8, and the biggest number that divides the 8 is the 8, of course. So now all I have to do is look at the number 24. All right, so there it is. The 24 also has the number 8. Well, then that's my GCF because it's called the greatest common factor, not any random factor. So my GCF for the number is 8. Now let's talk letters. This has 7 X's. This has 4 of them. Then I should definitely take out X's, but how many? Well, you're only allowed to take 4 because that's all you have here anyway. So you can only take 4. Remember, the smallest power. All right, so here we go. I am basically going to do this. I'm going to divide everybody by 8, and I'm going to subtract 4 X's from everybody. Again, I'm going to divide by 8, and I'm going to subtract 4 X's from everybody because that's what we're supposed to do with our power, subtract. All right, so here's my GCF. 8x to the 4. Okay, here comes my parentheses. Yes, there's a minus sign in the middle. All right, let's start that division. 24 divided by 8. All right, well, it's easy enough. All right, so if you have your answer, write it in. And X's now. So here's my X because we do have some leftovers. 7 take away 4. So there's a subtraction. So we have 3 left. Now, here, 8 divided by 8 is 1. So I'm not crossing them out. I'm putting a 1. But when you subtract your powers, look, 4 minus 4, well, that's 0. That means you don't have any X's left either. But you have to write something here. Well, don't forget, 8 divided by 8 was a 1. And just like that, there's my answer. Remember, GCF is always a part of it. It goes out in front, and then we just divide everybody by it. Okay, now, when we look at number 14, it is the exact same type of question. You are going to do GCF, so you're going to do the same thing. So I'm not going to cover that one because we just finished doing one of those. I want to make sure we have enough time to cover all the new ones. So let's look at number 15. Now, number 15 says equals 0. The good thing is everything already has a parentheses. So what we learned was if I have 2 X's, well, then I should have 2 answers. The first one is 3x minus 8. As I set it equal to 0, and I'll solve that. The other one I'm going to set up is x minus 7 is equal to 0. We're using the zero product property where we make both parentheses, both factors, equal to 0. All right, so now I'm just going to take all my basic algebra skills. And look, how do I get rid of a minus 8? Add it. So now 3x is equal to 8. How do I get rid of the 3 that's right next to an x? Well, divide. And so we get x is equal to 8 over 3. Not negative or anything, just 8 over 3. So look, no 8 over 3. All right, that one's fine. That's a negative 8. That makes no sense. All right, I'm down to 2 choices. So let's see what this one's going to be. How do we get rid of a minus 7? Well, we add 7. So x is equal to 7. And there we go. We got our answer. It's the only one that matches with a positive 7. So again, you just have to be very careful. Sorry, you can see that there. So you have to be very careful when choosing your answers. All right. Number 16 is a new question that we haven't talked about yet. So we're going to do that one too. Choose the 2 factors of the following expression. I'm not worried about the choose 2. This is the word that matters. As soon as I see that word, and here's what I'm trying to work with, when you factor, there's a process. Number 1, you're going to question GCF. So, do we see a number in the front? No. Do we see a letter in the back? No. Then GCF is out. We only do GCF if everybody has a number and everybody has a letter sometimes, depending. So now that it has 3 terms, well, now we do what we always do. I'm going to get my two parentheses ready. Right underneath it. Oh, sorry. There we go. Now you can see it better. There we go. We have x squared. Well, that's easy, x and x. There, that x is done. What I look at now is this, the 24. So remember, we look at our list, 24 times 1, 12 times 2. I'm just looking at my list of 24. 8 times 3, and 6 times 4. All right. But you have to remember, it's all about the goal. The question is, what's the goal in this problem? Well, I look right in front of the 24. There's a minus sign. So my goal is to subtract. And I'm going to subtract to get a negative 5. So if I'm looking at my numbers, again, the goal is subtraction. So I'm subtracting. Right now, I'm just trying to get a 5. So the only one that would give me a 5 is this one. So I know my numbers are 8 and 3, but this is why we do our check. It's called guess and check for a reason. That's 8x. That one is 3x, but we said they're going to subtract to give me my goal, negative 5x. Remember, if you're subtracting, one of these has to be a negative. So the question is, which one? Well, if you're thinking about the 8, you're right. The bigger number should be negative. So my 8 is negative, my 3 is positive, and now it's time to pick our answers very carefully. All right, let's see. X minus 8. All right, here it is. So there's one answer. X plus 3. Oh, there it is. Those are my two answers right there with a perfect match. It's all about knowing what the goal is. Now, number 7 is the same type of question, but because factoring is so new, I'm going to cover it anyways. So here's number 17. Choose the two factors that work with this. All right. You know what? Let me write it over here just to give myself more space. All right, first question, GCF. Well, it has no number in the front that's visible. There's no letter back here, so no GCF, which means automatically set up my two factors, two parentheses. There's an x squared, so that's the next thing. We break off our x into 2. And now it's time to start thinking about our goal. There's the number 24. So it's the same problem as that we did earlier, kind of, right? So it's 24 and 1. So I'm just going to use the same numbers I did earlier. 24 and 1, 12 and 2, 8 and 3, 6 and 4. But it's all about knowing the goal. The goal in this problem has to do with this, but it's adding. I want to add. And the thing I want to get is a negative 10x. But right now, I just want to know who adds to give me a 10. So if I'm looking at these and I'm thinking about, all right, who am I adding? Who am I adding? Who am I adding? There it is. They're the ones that add to a 10. And if you're thinking, but it's negative, all right, we'll get there. So a 6 and a 4. And this is why we do our check. 6 times x is 6x. X times 4 is 4x. Our goal was to add to get a negative 10x. Well, remember, when you're adding, they have to be the same sign. That's why if they're both positive, I would get a positive. But if I want a negative, well, then they both have to be negative. That's the only way to get that negative 10. And so if they're both negative, well, then we write them in. And just like that, look, x minus 6, there it is. X minus 4, and there it is. All right, at this moment, we're going to pause the video so that you can get the opportunity to work on your homework for a little bit. We're not done with this review, but now you can jump into today's homework, which is right here. And you can already do the entire first page on page 45. This is the homework, page 45. And you can already do some of the ones on page 46 as well. So we're going to give you some time to work on numbers 1 through 8. And then we'll come back and finish the rest of the notes.